All right, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Today is a fun little video about this mini Beryl pistol. This is basically a mostly correct uh, production model of the KBK WZ96, which is the carbine length version of the WZ96 Beryl rifle, and they're really neat guns. This is a very very well made firearm. It suffers from a few design and logistical and regulatory features that I'm going to remedy. We unfortunately in the United States suffer under the National Firearms Act and the Gun Control Act, which have enslaved us into uh, a regulatory system of lengths and measures for certain types of firearms. And so, as a result, in order to have a proper stock added to this gun, I have to create a rifle out of it. It comes in as a pistol, which is extremely stupid, but that's just the way our draconian overlords like to mess with us. They like to put their boot on our throats, and so in a spirit of rebellion, I'm not going to be registering this. I will be extending the barrel out with essentially a 24 millimeter threaded tube as a flash can, and then I will be adding the buttstock and a Beryl POPC rail. As it comes in, it has this modern military correct steel Picatinny rail, which is dovetailed into the sight block and affixed with two set screws. You can see the large rivets there. The set screws are what hold it in, and they're not threaded into this sight block. Those are just divots. They are just dents, and the sharp end of the set screws affix into those dents, and that's it. So if I were to be running or doing any kind of maneuver and I were to give a good whack on this or drop this and it hits the edge of something, it could potentially, oh, well, there's my rail loose. So I'm not a military. I don't have military armorers fixing my guns. I don't have replacement parts for these components. I can acquire them, but I don't have the military budget to effect repairs on a weapon like this. I'm the armorer. I have to do this. So what I'm doing is kind of cannibalizing this rail in certain ways. I'll get into that, but I'm going to be using the POPC top cover rail, and which is a lot, not only a lot more real estate to mount optical devices, but also it is a lot lower in terms of height over bore. It's this rail is literally like, even with let's say you have your stock right here, in order to see any kind of optical device, I literally have less than a chin weld. It's like I'm sitting my throat on top of the buttstock in order to aim. And with it, let's say I'm using this EOTech. Let's just mount it here randomly. In order to aim through this device, I'm literally putting my chin on top of whatever whatever the buttstock or pistol brace would be. So I've elected to forego this disgusting rail system that is current on the KBK WZ96s, and I'm going to be cannibalizing this and using components of this, and just running the famous Beryl top cover rail. No, this is not a dog leg. A lot of people call these dog legs. They are similar, but this is the OG POPC system. So it has a deep channel cut in it for the allowance of visual access to your iron sights, such that they were. I'm not sure. The original mini Beryls used this POPC rail, and I don't know if they ever had a fixed iron sight. There was a model of this originally that had a somewhat of a sight in the back of it, but this became the standard after a while, and these were mounted mostly on the full-size Beryl rifles instead of the carbines. So, but the early mini Beryls did have the not only the slots cut in the side of the sight block, but they did come with these Beryl rails. So what I'm having done is I'm having this really chunky stock trunnion with these 3 rivet holes and the dovetailed nub in the back, which interfaces into the back of this rail. I'm having it installed onto the back of this trunnion. This is 3 rivets. This is the FB Radom correct factory production stock trunnion, and that will allow me to use a buttstock. As this comes in, there's this goofy compliant sling bar thing here that I think they should have just like not done that. I think they could have saved everyone a little bit of time and headache and just not had that. It's really frustrating because people who want to affix braces to these and not do what I'm doing, there are a bunch of different mounts, but with this stupid sling bar in the way, you got to cut that off, and that could have the potential, especially with the edge of these receivers being so close to these corners, you could nick that receiver and damage the receiver. It could be visible on the outside when you mount your brace. So that's kind of why I'm electing not to use a brace, and I'm just going to extend the barrel with a tube, and then I'll mount a actual stock trunnion in the back, which will allow me to use the POPC rail. And the POPC rail is really interesting. You have this nub on the top of that trunnion, and it has a slot, as you can see there, kind of a dovetail deal, and it's at a bit of an angle, so it's pressed into the bottom there, and that correct angle aligns with a hole that, when you turn this throw lever, locks into place. It's a little bit stiff. You can see a bit of a projection comes out into that hole, and it locks your nub in place. So it throws all the way across. Now that won't come off. So you can see how that affixes. Now that is the stock trunnion, so of course I can mount my buttstock, and this is a Polish WZ96 buttstock that extends. There were some early prototypes that could fold and extend, but they ended up going with a much stronger, just collapsible stock. That's mostly what I wanted for this. I thought about a folding stock, but with the barrel extension, it really doesn't matter. I'm not worried about this being a little small gun because I'm going to be using it for night fighting, and I would rather have a changeable length of pull so that I'm not bonking my night vision tube into my PVS-14 into whatever optical device I'm using. So this is nicely machined. It interfaces with that stock trunnion, and you can see that nub protrudes and allows for the POPC rail to be mounted in. And so that's that. Bob's your uncle. So these stocks are interesting. They kind of are the same hard plastic as the handguards. Very nice heat resistant plastic. M4 style adjustment with a squeeze lever, and this steel sort of square tubing. It's very, very interesting, very, very Polish, and has a steel block here with two pins that hold it in place. Very rigid, and this big pad right here can come off. It's basically a cover for the actual back of the buttstock, which is, again, that sort of hard plastic, but it can just come off. But it's nice to have that rubber for especially for guys who are launching grenades off of these little mini Beryls, which is exactly what this muzzle device is set up for. Which is ridiculous to think about, having a grenade launch that close off your face. This gun literally is like, let's see, that big. It's miniature, so in the military application, that's quite close to have an explosive device like flying off the end of your gun. So pretty sick. They can accomplish that without the dust cover flying off by this little tab here that you have to press down and push in to access the internals. The internal machining is excellent. This entire gun is Polish original. There's no 922R nonsense, no legality to deal with, so it is all factory original. It comes with a very cool enhanced selector, as you can see there, so I can use my finger to access the safety. It comes with a whale tail magazine latch, so you can see just how enormous that latch is. So for throwing mags in and out, I don't even have to use my thumb. I can just push my palm into it and throw mags out. And a lot of people were kind of speculating on which mags fit in these. Basically, if you have any AK-74 pattern mags, you can get conversion followers and pop them in. You can of course use the Beryl mags, but I think the only real Beryl mags that are worth using in any serious manner are going to be the black metal reinforced ones that they started out with. They went to, as a cost-saving measure, Poland went to a all plastic green translucent mag, and they had a couple different versions. Some were white, some were dark, but the most common variety are the all plastic green translucent ones that have no metal reinforcement. So the locking lug, the locking tab, the feed lips, the spine, none of it's metal reinforced. So what I've elected to do is just, I have a bunch of 74 mags. They all fit, and with a 5.56 follower, it'll just feed fine, and there'll be no problems. You can of course get other types of mags, the WVP mags or whatever, but again, those are all plastic. I'm not really interested in that. This is going to be sort of a serious gun for me. So the other thing that I want to mention is there are a number of different hand guards that FB produced, and I have a different one coming on the way. I have a good friend who's sending me the vertical dong, not the railed hand guards, but the plastic pistol grip forend with the two Weaver rails mounted on the sides. It's a real famous, like, early design, very, very cool and ergonomic. And with the 5.56 mags, I'm not going to be swinging a big banana mag into the back end of that. It's a 5.56 mag, so it just leans out and goes down. So I'm not going to be bonking it. These are sort of the modern mini Beryl heat shielded 100 series inspired handguards, but they do have really cool cooling vents and stuff. This gun disassembles similarly but different to most AKs. So I'll go ahead and kind of take this apart. You have to push this little latch down and push the recoil assembly inward. And again, because this is new, it is tight. So top cover is this nice stamping. It's not numbered to the gun. Oh no, it is. Oh, cool. It's just that it's electro etched and it was kind of faint, so it matches your serial number. Again, the big safety selector paddle there. You can see I can access with my index finger. It's very stiff as it comes from the factory. So let's take this out because I want to show you this little tiny piston. Again, it has the original fire control group, and look at that little chub. Again, all the machining's high quality. There's no machining marks. There's hardly any flaws to this. It's very, very nice. I've seen a bunch of AKs where they have the mill marks and stuff. But yeah, that's the bulk carrier group. It's just funny to see one that's so tiny. Kind of charming. So I'll see if I can do this. This is I've never like pushed this pin through. I'll see if I can do it with something here. But in order to take the handguards off, you have to remove this front retainer, which is like ambidextrous for slings, so you can mount a sling off the right or the left side, and it holds the whole handguard on. So let me see if I can do this. It's held on with this pin that travels through. It's captive, and it is stiff. Here's my handy little there you go. Okay, so it's captive on the inside there. You push your little handguard retainer forward. Your upper handguard can come off, and it's this little affair with a little spring. That's pretty charming. It's got a little captive latch right there, or a tab that locks in to the rear sight base. And your tube, just kind of like a galil, just pops up, and your whole tube comes off. There's no like slot allowance for an AKM style handguard. And then of course lower handguard just comes off, and it's this little baby's first AK handguard. It's really cool. You can see the heat shield in there. So like I said, this handguard will be being replaced with basically a brand new Dong handguard. It's essentially this with a Weaver rail, like a 1911 or 1913 rail, mounted here, and then it has a pistol grip protruding off the bottom of it, but it's the same size. So here's the gun. The other thing that people complained about, besides that rail and the stock allowance, is this muzzle device. Now, the way they imported it, the way they had to, because we have essentially a fascist dictatorship of a government, we have to deal with the fact that there's a single pin holding the normally movable detent in place. So I can't move the plunger out of the way. So this 24mm device is stuck in place, and it's essentially a flash hider with this collar, and it's not a chamber, it's not a booster. The barrel actually protrudes out the front of this gas block and ends right there. So it's got a 9.5-inch barrel. The barrel pretty much ends right where that shoulder is, right here. This is just a flash hider for the front end, and it is perfect for their system of grenade launching. So what I have to do is I have to remove that roll pin, let my other pin drop out through the back here. There's a hole right here that goes forward, and the roll pin goes side to side. So I have to push the roll pin through, let that pin drop out. I can unthread this. My gunsmith is making essentially 24mm threaded tube, so whatever, 1.5 inch tubing, 1/4 inch steel thickness, and it's just going to extend roughly 7 inches from, so it'll be essentially this long. So it'll look somewhat like a suppressor. I'm mainly using it for a flash cam, and it will just be affixed here. What's neat is I won't have to, in order to do this, it's got to be pin and welded, but what's cool about this is I won't be ruining the barrel or the gas block by running a weld onto any of these parts. This barrel, in order to mount this device, has a collar. So the barrel is like 15mm outer diameter or 16mm, whatever they use. You can run a 14x1 left hand threading if it was just the barrel. They run that out, and they have a collar pressed and pinned on with the threading for this device on top of it. So it's not actually the barrel that's interfacing with this muzzle device. It's an entire another collar slid over the top and pinned through the side, and it's ported so the gas can chuck out the front. There's like one little port out in the front here, besides the barrel. So what that means is I can just do my pin and my weld. I can do the weld on that collar. I don't have to ruin the heat treat on my barrel out near the front by attaching a barrel extension. It's really cool. So yippee for that. So I'm going to put this little gun back together. I'm kind of giving some hints and suggestions for anybody who's willing to kind of go through the hassle of wanting to convert one of these two. It really is it's a worthy task. It's quite a nice little firearm. Very high quality. FB Radom produces some of the best guns in the world, and their Beryl rifles, their full size, are excellent. I've talked to many people who have the full size rifles and they love them. Very accurate, very good, and I just think this little one is such a little goblin monster. It's so charming. I had one in the past, and I welded a rear sight onto this block, kind of like a crank with ears, and then it had a little flip aperture and slot. I sold it to my friend who thought it was neat, and I just I looked back at it and I went, ooh, I kind of regret doing that. So I thought it'd be neat to do another one and kind of go the distance with it. So I'll just leave this like that, because this pin, the way this interface is, there's a block on this handguard retaining tab, and it's extremely precise. So in order for me to, let's see if I can do it here. There you go, got it through. Thanks, table. But yeah, that's really well fitted. It's kind of fitted like a G3 handguard, where there's a pin out in the front. Really interesting. This is sort of this gun takes a lot of cues from other types of guns, not just AKs. So that's neat. Okay, so about the rear sight, because there's a front sight, but there's no rear sight without this little rail, which has a flipped slotted sight and a aperture, so you can see that. The positioning of this is such that it ends up being roughly in the same spot as a AKS 74U rear sight, kind of right in the middle of the receiver. So if you think about the AKS 74 having the hinged top cover with the rear sight right here, it's about the same spot. They just chose to do this goofy rail system. I understand for a military having just optical devices right on top and then a backup iron, but this really isn't ideal. Not only is it not secure, I don't think, well enough as far as being strong enough. This flip sight is slightly, there's just a tiny bit of movement, and now with a gun like this, having a little bit of movement in the backup sight is not really a problem. I mean, it's barely perceptible, but it is there because this is a flip sight with a detent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to affix it. Basically, I'm going to take this rail here. There's a riveted, see those rivets there? There's a plate on the bottom. This plate here is separate from this main rail. I'm going to take those rivets out, slide this dovetail off. This dovetail fits all the way down the length of this bottom portion of the rail. So you can see that bottom section of the rail, this width here, is what rides in the dovetail on that plate. So I'm going to take that off. I'm going to cut this steel rail right about there. So from here back is what I'm going to use. I'm going to take this sighting system with this flip rear. I'm going to cut it right where my thumb's at, slide this dovetailed piece backwards towards it, have it welded to this plate here, which will then allow me to slide it into this dovetail. I will have essentially just this back end, if you can imagine here. Imagine there's no rail here, okay? This is all missing. The rear sight will still be there as a backup. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the slotted cut as my sight, kind of like an AK, like a standard AKM rear sight. I'm going to affix this little body here with TIG welding to the dovetail plate, which will be shortened, TIGged onto here, and then slid into here and TIG welded into the top here. So I will have a actually functional, usable backup rear sight that will end up, yes, it will shorten the sight radius, but this is a close quarters gun anyways, so it'll basically shorten the rear sight, or shorten the sight radius from here to here. So all this rail will be gone. It will just be the dovetail and welded in, and then I can still access my flips. I may just weld it to the slotted sight there. That's probably what I'll do. I don't foresee using the aperture because it is a small aperture and it's meant to be viewed at the mid receiver line. So if you can imagine, it's meant to be viewed from right there at that aperture. So if I move it forward, I don't get the benefit of that aperture really being an aperture. But that slotted, that big slot there, I can still see that clear as day, even all the way in front of the top cover. It'll be right about there. So if that makes any sense, essentially, imagine got my rail right here, okay? So take that away. My rear sight will end up right there. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm kind of chopping this rail system up using the components of it and welding it to the front end of this block. That will allow me to hinge this rail system up even with a laser mounted on the front of it, and I will not bump that into that rear sight. So I'll show you what that looks like once it's completed. It's a little bit of a task, but I think this gun is more than deserving of a actual fixed rear sight. I don't like having a gun with just optics on it. I'm real old school. I don't think that's smart to lose your backups. So that's what I'm doing. If I'm going whole hog on, re-riveting stuff and doing, a pin and weld out the front, I have no problem TIG welding a basically a fixed rear sight, and it won't be me doing the TIG welding. I have a very skilled friend who's an excellent TIG welder, and he did the rear sight on my previous mini Beryl, and I was very, very impressed with it. So it may or may not be considered bubbaing, but what I'm doing is I'm turning this into an old school first generation somewhat mini Beryl with POPC rail, and I just demand having a rear sight. I just want a fixed rear sight in the back. That's all I want. It's the only customization that isn't military correct besides the barrel extension, but I'm doing that one for flash hiding purposes, and two because I don't believe in registering anything under the NFA. I think that's slavery business. So no offense if you've done that or if you have NFA items. Me personally, I will never ever do that. So I don't want to legitimize that whole registry scheme. I think it's a very dangerous affair that people are willing to register their guns in order to have something that they have a God-given right to. So, but again, I would still put some kind of either suppressor on the front anyways. In this case, I'm just using a flash can, and it'll work virtually identical. I just won't get the sound suppression benefits that you would with a suppressor. I will get the flash hiding, which is basically all I want, because with this Beryl rail system, I have enough rail to mount an EOTech in the back, okay, and I don't have it with me here, an IR illuminator right in front of it. So rather than weighing down the front end of this handguard with some kind of IR device, I'm going to be mounting the IR directly behind, or directly in front of my optic. So let me just reassemble this gun because it's bothering me not being able to show you. I hope if you stuck with me this far, you're getting as excited as I am, because really what I've wanted to do with this is fix this POPC rail, because it's so big and so long that it will allow me to use not only, maybe not even this one, but any other night vision capable optic and my laser. So my laser aiming device will sit in front of my optic, and I will be able to run a pigtail switch because of the dong handguards with the rail on the side here. I'll be able to run a thumb switch on that handguard set and have my night vision capable short gun with the flash can aiding me in flash suppression, and it will be quite the, let's see if I can do this, give you a little, maybe not. Anyways, you get the idea. Yes, of course it does mean pushing my optic back kind of into my face, but like I said, this stock extends and gives me more than enough space, even with a PVS 14, to you see what I'm getting at here. More than enough space to have a PVS 14 and have my passive aiming, and with the IR laser have my active aiming with the illuminator laser. So the only real trouble with this kind of setup is determining which optic and which laser combo work best together. I will be running just a pigtail switch off to that dong handguard thing. That's no big deal. I have that pretty much figured out. There are a few a few IR laser illuminators that run a battery and a laser out at the front, so I don't have to worry about taking the batteries out towards the optic. This being an EXPS30, it is a chunky optic, but it is very capable under night vision, and I've used it to look through passive aiming, and it has got a generous window. It's very clear. I can see pretty much everything on the other side of this with the PVS 14, and so I'm confident in this optic. There are a few IR laser aiming devices that I think would have it more. I would be able to, because usually IR laser devices generally about this big. They're gonna not really be any bigger than that. So it still gives me some trouble here trying to get the battery out the back of that. So I'm probably gonna go with something like a Hollow Sun, even though it is less powerful. It's a civilian device. For a gun literally this size, I'm not worried about projecting a big powerful beam out past like 300 yards. I'm not worried about that. And I've seen and used a Hollow Sun IR device, and it's more than adequate for laser aiming under night vision for something like this. This is a close quarters gun, like I said. So I will probably run a Hollow Sun, which does, like I said, have the laser aiming device and the batteries are in the same side of the device, so I won't have to pull the battery out towards my optic. I could get an aim point and run it under night vision, but I like the EOTech a little bit more just because it's more bigger. So let's get this off here. So that's kind of why I'm going with this long rail over the top of the receiver instead of this little half rail, because this will, like I said, allow me to run my optical device and a laser aiming module right on the same rail. It'll be completely secure, won't wobble, won't move, and it will allow me not to weigh down the front end of this, because I will basically have a device that's not really going to be much heavier than this sticking out the front. With that little dong on the front, it will be pretty slick and very well balanced because all the weight's going to be right here, right where my strong hand is. It's going to be kind of keeping the gun pretty snug and secure under firing. Won't recoil all that much. Not that this gun recoils anyways. It's a little short 5.56 gun. 5.56 doesn't really recoil all that well or all that powerfully. So what else can I say about this? I hope that whole spiel kind of made sense, because I'm really going to do a number on converting this, and I think it'll be pretty sweet to get it sort of military correct and have that backup sight and not have to register it as a stupid SBR. Another note about this is the pistol grip that it comes with. These are really nice. If you can get your hands on one of these, if you like AKs, this is like a really nice pistol grip. It's textured in the back here. Got finger grooves, which some people like, some people don't, but it's pretty damn sweet. It's got like accommodations for your thumb, so you can see the shelf there. It's ambidextrous, so you can do it on both sides. Yeah, so in order to mount this rail, you can see those two pegs. Essentially what my gunsmith is going to do is use a rotary kind of mill bit, and I know that's not the technical term, but I can't think of what it's called. Essentially, it looks like a little buzz saw on the end of a end mill, and it spins around. He's going to mount it vertically and run a scalloped cut. I have a gun here that has the exact same scallops. So this is a WBP Fox, and you can see the PLPC rail mounts over the top and ends with the pins riding in identical scalloped cuts. And these are not just slots, they come in and scallop out towards the surface of the material here. So you can see kind of what I'm thinking about as far as optical aiming devices here. EOTech or whatever, aim point or whatever, and my laser illuminator all in that one gun. So imagine it's the mini Beryl that I'm holding, and this butt stock. But that will allow me to have all my optics right here, and I can still mount a white light if I want. I think some of the Holosuns run white light, illuminator, laser, and daylight laser, so I might not have to have a secondary light. But with that, again, with that mini Beryl dong handguard, it does have a rail on both sides, plus the vertical grip. So I can probably just mount a white light and run another switch. Possibilities are endless. So this is these WBP Foxes are pretty sweet. I know a lot of people will poo-poo WBP, or some people do. I don't know why. They get a bunch of their components from the same sources as FB. FB does a lot of their own metalwork, but they do contract some parts. So, for instance, WBP has done contract work for FB, so they've made parts for FB Radom. The barrel is FB cold hammer forged chrome plated. It's got some receiver components that are FB produced. I know, but they do good. They do good AKs. So if you're interested in a WBP, this is the Fox model. It has the accommodation for that cool top cover. It is 7.62 by 39. I wouldn't really go after any of the 5.56 ones from WBP just because they seem to all have, or most of them have, that gas block combo thing. Not really a fan of it. Now I understand if you're going to be running a suppressor out the front, that's fine. I'm just more of a traditionalist because of the superior detent mounting system where I can press a button and unthread my muzzle device. I don't like the idea of, like, obviously on this I have to, but like wrenching down a muzzle device, I like to be able to take one off and switch out. I think that's a advantage that the AK has as far as the design. So yeah, that's just kind of wanted to clarify how that rail is going to be mounted on the Mini Beryl. I will be having the gunsmith scallop the cuts in the side here. Now this could have been done by Arms of America or FB. They could have supplied us with pistols that had that, but it was like a decision that FB and Arms of America made to not include those cuts. I don't know why. It drives me absolutely bonkers that they said, don't worry about it, because these are the same sight blocks as the ones that are on the military Mini Beryls, and the Mini Beryls in the Polish military have the slots. So they can take that little rail off, put one of these bad boys on, and it just baffles, it just beggars belief why they thought that just this rail would be okay. It's just a difference of literally like $90 for them to do that in terms of labor. So it's such a quick cut on either side that I have a local gunsmith who's like, I know exactly what to do that. That's like a basic machining operation. So that's how this is going to work. So anyways, to conclude, this Mini Beryl will become a rifle, and I will be able to mount a buttstock to my gun, and I will have the cool military correct 1st gen or 2nd gen rail. I'll have the correct stock trunnion. I have the factory produced rivets. These are the ones that can take the shearing forces of grenade launching. These aren't some aftermarket components. These are real FB rivets. I have the actual FB stock hardware here. So this is what fixes this buttstock, which is a machined steel component to the stock trunnion. And again, I will have that Dong vertical grip forward handguard. I'll probably keep this top one because I like the little slots. Just aesthetically, it's neat. Yeah, that's this little Mini Beryl. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna go get a little mag and I'll pop it in, and then I'll end the video because I forgot to bring a mag to show you. All right, so here's the Beryl. These modern ones, these are all plastic, no metal reinforcements. The follower is some sort of metal, and the floor plate is steel. But they lock in. They're translucent. They're really neat. But for a military, these are perfect because they are lightweight. If they break, you got a billion others that are $2 to make per. For me, I'm going to use AK-74 mags and just change the follower out. It's a much cheaper option than it actually ends up adding up to be, because these right now are like 35 or whatever dollars to get one. This came with it, so I'm not. But these are $14. They're metal reinforced. They have steel locking lug, steel locking tab, steel feed lips, and they have a little bit of metal reinforcement down the front. So that's all you need to mount into a gun like this and have a really, really effective magazine for this gun. And again, you can see if I'm doing these reloads here, I don't even have to use my thumb to remove it with that big, generous magazine latch. So, I mean, it's about as wide as my thumb. can see. So, just really generous components, really nice machining. The rivets are perfect. Just really cool. The thing that it is missing is the way these Beryls are they're set up to run. They have your safety selector, which is up and down, so fire and safe. On the other side, the originals have basically a selector on the thumb side that has two little protrusions. One setting is semi-auto, one is 3-round burst, and the last one is full auto. So you can adjust semi-auto to full auto or 3-round burst on this side, and then just turn the gun on or off. So there's no middle position like a normal AK. It's fire or no fire, and then on this side it is semi, 3-round, full auto. So that's a distinct difference between this and an AKM that holds over from the Tantal. Other than that, that's about it. I've pretty much said everything that there is. Just really sweet guns, and I'm going to be doing justice to this horrible mutilation that is the the regulated import pistol. I don't like that this is just all we have to deal with. I want a rifle that is short, but since I can't have that, I can just put a tube in front and then have a short rifle. But that's that. Hope you guys enjoyed this really way more in-depth video than I was planning on doing. But yeah, talk to you later. Bye.